Good evening. Welcome to Motormouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra Cook.
I'm Dan Olson.
And we're so glad that all of you at home decided to join us. And we're here at the Boyertown Museum. We're inside the Reading Diner. We like to start out our evenings here when we're here on PCTV. And the Boyertown Museum is located at 85 South Walnut Street here in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. And we're open Tuesday through Sunday, 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. We are closed Mondays. And if you want to get a hold of us here at the museum, you can reach us by phone, 610-367-2090. You're also more than welcome to send us an email using mail, that's MAIL, at boyertownmuseum.org. And we just got over the holidays. We hope everyone had a nice, safe, happy holiday. And we're glad to be back on a normal schedule here at the museum. And we have a couple of announcements to make. One is, in case you didn't know, here in 2015, the museum is turning 50.
Wow.
Can you believe it? It is our 50th anniversary at the Boyertown Museum. And we're plan on celebrating this all year long. And the first event to kick off our whole anniversary year-long celebration will be our 50th anniversary Golden Gala, and that is on January 17th. It's from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. and tickets are $10 per person, and that includes, you get to walk through the museum, and it includes hors d'oeuvres. It includes we're going to have a champagne toast at 7 p.m. There's going to be local wineries. We'll have their wine here so you can support some local businesses. And at 8 o'clock, you'll want to definitely be here at 8 o'clock. We are unveiling the newest addition to the collection. It's so new that it's not even here in the museum yet as we're filming. And we're not going to tell you what it is, but I can promise you, you won't be disappointed. Am I right, Dan?
You're correct.
I've
seen pictures of it, and it's great.
It's amazing.
It's great. You have to be here.
That's right. And that's going to be at 8 p.m. if you come to our anniversary gala. We're also going to be having some music, a lot of 1960s music, since the museum was founded in 65. We'll have that sort of theme. We're going to have some old video that was taken back when the museum was at Warwick Street. That was pre-2000, I think is when they moved here, 2000, 2001.
Something like that.
When they moved into this building. So you'll get to see some of where, how far the museum has come, really. So please do come. We'd love to see you. Again, that's January 17th. That's the third Saturday of January. We're going to have special events the third Saturday of every month. So stay tuned and you'll hear about more things coming up. Also coming up soon is our Fastnacht Day. That will be here in the diner, and that's going to be Tuesday, February 17th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
I'm going to interrupt right here.
Please
I'm
do.
getting tired of this. I'm from Jersey originally. We don't have Fastnachts. What is a Fastnacht?
Okay, well, a Fastnacht, it's Fat Tuesday. It's
Okay.
the day before Lent, and basically, this is really embarrassing because my father's side of the family is Pennsylvania Dutch, and it's basically using up all that lard and flour and stuff. It's like a donut type thing. And it's basically to get rid of all that stuff before Lent comes.
Okay,
So
got it.
we're
Good
gonna
enough.
have Fastnachts and coffee here in the diner. Hope you can join us. And another note, it's January. We're coming up on the Philadelphia Auto Show. And we typically take a car to the auto show every year. This year, the auto show it's at the Philadelphia Convention Center, as always. That's from Saturday, January 31st through Sunday, February 8th. And we're going to be taking another new museum piece, not the car that Dan and I were teasing you about earlier. This is something different.
So now you told them it's a car.
Well, I did. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It's all ruined.
Okay.
I didn't narrow it
Continue.
down too much.
Continue.
But this car that we're taking to the auto show, we're going to feature later on in the program. So we'll
Yep.
talk a little bit about that later. And with that, I think our topic tonight is maybe a little, well, we might need it tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's on-
well, maybe.
Tomorrow
maybe.
after this filming, I'm
Yeah.
hearing.
So, anyway, yeah, we're talking, we're thinking kind of have a seasonal type of thing and about driving in bad weather. I believe a month ago we were talking about driving and keeping your windshield clear. This is so you have traction and that sort of stuff. And there's all sorts of gadgets and things. And we're going to be talking of some of those gadgets, how they were developed, I believe, and some very interesting things. And you have to stay to the end because I think the best thing we have to see, I wish we had it here in the museum,
I know.
but the best thing to see is what we're going to have at the end. So another little teaser for you. And I'm going to ask you, Kendra, if you can tell the people what this thing is in front of
Yeah.
you, not this fake hot dog.
Not the fake hot dog that I could really use a hot dog that's not fake right now. This, we have this little box in the back of the museum. We call it the history box. Now, we used to take the history box out and do a lot of programs with it. We haven't done that in a while. But it was basically full of things that we tried to stump people with. This is one of those items. This is all iron, I guess. It looks all hand forged and everything. You're never going to be able to see this, I'm sure, on screen. Right here, it says small. And you may notice it's kind of shaped like a horseshoe. This is basically a horse cleat. And this is for snow and ice. And it's probably for like a pony size horse. It is pretty tiny. I don't know much about horses. Basically, the horse would put its hoof in there. And you have these straps to adjust it and keep it tight. And then it's got these cleats, yeah, to chip into the snowy, icy road so the horse could get traction and pull whatever it was. Probably at this point a sleigh. Carriage wheels don't work very well in snow. No. Maybe on ice they better. Basically, this is really, really old-fashioned. Snow tire type thing.
It's a non-motorized snow tire.
That's right, a non-motorized snow tire. That's for a horse.
Of course.
Of course. But we've progressed a little bit beyond that today. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we did, yes. And we're going to be seeing some of them in just a moment or two. Okay, we have a car here, 1900 Duryea, made in Reading, 114 years old. And as you can see, the tires, the tread on them is very smooth. There's no things that cut into the ice or to the snow as we expect today.
Yeah, the only thing that's even raised is the maker.
The maker, yes, the brand name on the side.
Yeah.
Okay, and so back then, 1900, they didn't travel around too well on snowy streets. In fact, a lot of them, what they did during the wintertime, they just parked them. There was parking garages, and they would take a vehicle like this, and there was some sort of a tire jack that you could just put on the hub here and lift the whole car up and leave it that way, or they just jack it up and put jack stands under it, such as this. And that was it, because they didn't want the tires to go one side flat and all that stuff. Anyway, back in 1890, I have to check my notes here, 1895, there was a race in Chicago. And that was the first automobile race in the U.S., by the way.
Yes.
And that was won by a...
Wasn't Duryea involved
Yes, it
in that?
was. I thought you were asking the hard questions.
I know.
Okay, it was
I
won
gotta
by...
get warmed up.
It was won by Duryea, but the second place car was a Benz, as in the precursor to Mercedes-Benz. And there was snow on the ground, the snowstorm hit. They got this great idea, why don't we wrap ropes around the tires? And that's what they did. Well, somebody noticed that, and a few years after that, a patent was made. I think that was 1904. Let me look at my notes here again. And yeah, 1904, a guy named Harold Weed invented the tire chain as we know today. And these are a couple of simple chains for cars like this. And what you would do is just kind of wrap around the tire like this, and you could put the strap through the opening in the spokes and tie it. And here's another one. It operates kind of the same way. Some pretty healthy grips on here too. And we have a few others here at the museum. And you look at the old advertising, there's all sorts of stuff you could put. I mean, big cleats. We had one out a moment ago, but it was kind of big for this tire, maybe a little later era it would have been on. All sorts of things. So you could drive on these with these things. And I've also seen pictures of cars with the chains where they go around the circumference of the whole tire. And you would use them not just in snow and ice, but also mud and muddy roads, so you get better traction there.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw these because I was envisioning what you just mentioned, the ones that go all the way around the tire. I mean, I remember having those on the school bus
Okay.
when I was a kid, but those seem so, I mean, how many do you think you'd put on a tire?
I guess,
You know?
well, as many as you have.
Yeah, it just seems, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny, I just expected them to be bigger, I guess.
And they have chain systems now that they use on emergency vehicles that kind of act as a, I don't know, as a rotary thing. It goes around this way, and it has chains coming out, and you're driving over the chain as it moves, and it's kind of an interesting system. So, okay, let's trot on to the next place.
All right.
Okay, we have right here a Woodworth tread. It was made by a company to put over top your tires, okay? We showed you the smooth tread on that Dorrier, and you had chains you could put on. Well, here's another thing you would do, is you put this, and this is leather. And right now it's 100 and some year old leather, so it's quite stiff, and it used to be in worse shape than this. But anyway, you put this around your tire, and you strap it on. There'd be straps going through the spokes again, just like the chains had straps through the spokes, and this would give you better traction. These are little metal buttons here. These are studs. I have seen advertisements for other brands that are a lot more aggressive, we'll say, than this is. So this is kind of your run-of-the-mill Woodworth tread, and so that's what this is.
That's a lot of buckles.
It's a
I
lot
often
of
thought if you did that
buckles.
times 4 tires,
Yeah.
you should just wait for the snow to melt at that point.
Right. But I'm thinking the people who probably drove automobiles in snowy weather had to drive them, and it's worth, putting them on, whether it was doctors or, the mailmen, So, okay, here we have.
You're at my favorite tire tread, by the way.
What? Your favorite tire tread? Okay.
Did you know I had a favorite tire tread?
No, I didn't know.
Enlighten us about
Kendra
my
has a
favorite
better-
tire tread.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk about tire tread here. This one right here, and you look at that and you think, okay, it's just a bunch of little round things on the top of the tire. But this is actually called a Bailey tread or a Bailey button tread. And there's an actual patent on this design here. I don't know when it was patented, but it was a guy named C.J. Bailey out of Boston. And he started making, well, I guess it was 1906, that's probably when the patent was.
Yeah.
He sold this idea to different tire companies, and they actually put it on their tires. So that is Kendra's favorite.
It is.
And why is that? Is it Bailey button?
I
Sounds
don't.
nice.
It sounds like a nice little 1930s screwball comedy or something, but
yeah, Marx Brothers, Bailey button. So.
I think it's just, I mean, it's so rudimentary, but someone thought, hey, we should put raised surfaces on our smooth tires, and they came up with that. I like it.
So they had some interesting advertising back then. It says they are to the automobilist what the rudder is to the ship. Right, makes sense.
Sure.
Now, again, Bailey did not make the tires, but he sold the the rights to different companies. I have a list of the companies that would use it. We're talking BF Goodrich, Diamond, Hartford, Fisk, Goodyear, C&J, Morgan Wright, International. There's pretty much all the big tire manufacturers from like the 1900s. Is that what you call them?
I don't know.
Well, whatever.
The aughts.
Okay. It says here that the tracks of the Bailey won't slip tire are covering the earth. The stud marks of the Bailey won't slip tire show in mud, sand, or on asphalt. It's perfect traction utilizing all the power given to the car. Okay, so here it is. You would drive this thing down the street through mud or snow, and after you're long gone, somebody looks at the tire, hey, he has Bailey. So, you know, it's kind of an interesting little advertising thing, and they mention it in here. And so that was kind of an interesting thing here. Now, from this, it progressed to the different companies doing their own different tire treads, and we're going to be looking at them now. Okay, this car here is a Dial. This is another Reading-built car. This is 1914, one of either 4 or 5 known to exist.
Yeah, not many.
Okay, and we kind of know where they all are, by the way. Anyway, that's not why we're standing here. We're talking about tires. You can see the tire treads on these are quite busy. And actually, these are Firestone tires. This tire tread is from Firestone. And give you a little quote from Firestone here. It's the non-skid tire is the rudder of the automobile during slippery or heavy going. This kind of sounds like the Bailey.
They really like that rudder analogy,
yeah, that
don't
rudder
they?
stuff, okay? I heard, and I tried to find this out, but this design was the first tire that was remanufactured for the old car hobby. And this goes back in the 1940s. The car hobby was starting to gather
Steam.
Yeah, steam, thank you. And they needed tires. Apparently, there was a lot of people in the Philly area who had cars. The car show in Detroit, the new car show, they wanted them to bring some cars out. And they said, we need tires. So they approached Firestone, says, could you do these? Firestone said, well, we're not sure. They're not the best tires, you know, as far as traction and stuff. But they did them anyway. Very popular. We have, I can think off the top of my head, 4 vehicles we have on display
That sounds right.
now.
That
With
sounds
the
right, about
motorcycle,
4.
two Fords and this.
5.
5.
I think there's an electric with them too.
Right? You're right.
think,
Okay.
yeah.
So they're still quite popular. And I'm going to read some stuff here from Firestone. And it says, skidding, that ever-present bugbear to many motorists, is unknown to the user of Firestone non-skid tires. A skid in one direction is prevented by an angle. The next one creates a sharp edge. A third, a vacuum-creating property. Outside appliances may accomplish this one end, but largely at the expense of length of tire life. Again, they're talking about the change here. They work great, but you have to worry about the tire itself, okay? It is the tread which will prevent a skid in any direction under any road condition, which most surely meets the necessity. It is because Firestone compound has the amount of sharp rubber which permits the sharp edges, abrupt angles, and deep hollows that Firestone non-skid tires are such general choice. Kind of interesting what they're saying here. Now, before we go on to the next tire here, another little tidbit I found out. And in the 1930s, there was a professional basketball team in Akron, Ohio called the Firestone Non-Skids. I'm thinking, isn't that an interesting name for a professional team? But
I
anyway,
wonder what happened to them.
they hit the skids.
I guess.
So, yeah, I read there was some sort of professional team. Yeah, I think Goodyear had a team too, and it was interesting.
Wow.
So, okay, anyway, this was developed, I'm trying to think of the year here, maybe in the early teens, or maybe 1910, and it lasted for up into the 20s, so it was quite popular. But you can do a search. It might take a diligent search, but there's other tires that had some sort of logo, like advertising. We mentioned the Bailey tread you could see in the mud here. Well, same with this. This says non-skid, by the way, and you could see non-skid in the mud. Well, I have another one here, and it's called the Kendall Stitched Tread by the Kendall Tire and Rubber Company out of Akron. And it's all in the stitching. And they had the letters KST actually in the tread. A quote by them: in other type of tires, a layer of fabric are simply stuck together by layers of rubber. The Kendall is both stuck and stitched. 12,000 stitches, a specially prepared Sea Island cotton thread holds the layers together, overcoming the natural tendency to separate. So they were so proud of their stitching in all 12,000 stitches that they actually molded it into the rubber tread there. Guaranteed against blowouts for 6,000 miles, which I thought was pretty substantial. And then there was another one called Standard 4 Tires, kind of boring sound here. Chief of the Tire Tribe. Think about that one. Isn't that a clever advertising thing? It's made by the Standard 4 Tire Company out of Keokuk, Iowa. Keokuk, I had to look this up, was named after a chief of the Sac tribe that was out in the Iowa area. And he was very good with the government, U.S. government and stuff, and so they named the town after it. These tire people decide, hey, we're going to use this to our advantage. And they had interesting advertising with Indian pictures. And I'll read you one of them here. It says, as glides the Indian canoe smoothly, silently, without jolt or jar, glides the well-appointed car on Standard 4 tires. As the Indian canoe moves swiftly through the rock-spotted rapids, Standard 4 tires will negotiate the roughest roads without mishap, and a gasoline bill is waste tax exempt.
So back to that boat thing again. Yeah. They're really stuck on it.
Yeah. Well, and they had other ones. Something about games that they were playing. You know, that the Indians were playing games, and you know they compared it to the tires. All sorts of interesting advertisements back there. So that's sort of some of them. That's some of them. There's the Hartford Rubber Works out of New York City. 1917, they had 2 new tires, the Hartford H tread. Yes, there's an H in a tread, several 2 rows of H's here. And also the Hartford Strong Heart tread, and it'd be little hearts there, just in time for Valentine's Day, I guess. And they talked about, remember that the Hartford tires mean tire insurance. And I'm thinking, I've heard of Hartford Insurance, and it was kind of interesting how they did that. And then here's another cool one here. It's made, well, I'll tell you in a moment who it was made for or made by, but it was out of Malden, Massachusetts, 1921, and it was said more miles, less skid. And the logo of the company was the letter C with an X in it. And you'd see that on the tire tread a lot. And this was made by the Converse Rubber Shoe Company. So if you heard of Converse sneakers, same company, Converse Rubber Shoe Company. 1921, they were making tires. So
I love that Converse started out as a tire maker.
Yep. So I don't know if they start out as a tire maker or shoe maker, but they
at some point
you don't think, shoes, tires, they do the same thing.
They both have tread.
Yeah.
Usually, unless you're wearing my shoes.
Okay. You have a question about this style, don't you?
Well, I have a question that a visitor had actually one time, and now I was looking at this before we started, and this must be the only car that didn't fit her question. So it says non-skid in here. Now this one, the non-skid is upside down.
Yes.
The writing. That side it's right side up. If you're reading it.
Okay.
Now, and she had said, she noticed that on the cars with the non-skid, 3 of the wheels were right side or wrong side, and the 4th, which is always in the front, was the other way. Is there any rhyme or reason to the text and how it's,
I don't know. We could ask Chief Keokuk. No, I don't. I don't know. I think it's just the way they were mounted happened to be that way.
That's kind of my thought. Now, she said, they're all like this. Now, this one is not quite like that. We've got 2 and 2.
Okay.
So now we have to go around and check the other ones, and we'll have to research that.
Yes.
Because I don't know the answer.
You have
And neither do you. So
curatorial assistant.
that's right.
She could do it. Okay.
Well, earlier we talked a little bit about the Philadelphia Auto Show and how we visit every year. And this is what we're taking this year.
Really?
Are you going to drive it there, Dan?
No. I had a
No?
hard enough time just getting in this thing.
I hope the fire alarm doesn't go off, because I don't think you can get out of there too quickly, huh?
No.
No. You're probably pretty crammed tight in there.
It is.
Well, this is a 1940 American Bantam Roadster. And this is pretty new to the collection. We haven't had this for very long, I would say about 2 months or so. Now, the museum started out 50 years ago really only collecting vehicles that were made in Berks County, southeastern Pennsylvania. A few years ago, we actually expanded our mission here at the museum so that we collect vehicles made anywhere in the state of Pennsylvania. And this is our first example from the western half of our state. And this was built in Butler, Pennsylvania, which is about 35 miles north of Pittsburgh. So this is really very out there, very far away actually in our state. But this is a really cute little car. This is a 4-cylinder, 22 horsepower, 75-inch wheelbase. It's a tiny little thing. I can't imagine it's that terribly comfortable to drive for a long period of time if you're a long-limbed person. And how do you think about those wipers, Dan?
They're cool. Yeah, they're the vacuum wipers here. We talked about them last month.
Well, the American Bantam actually started out in 1929 as the American Austin. And they started their business, actually had their offices in Delaware. Their manufacturing plant was in Butler, and we have a photo of that. And it doesn't look terribly big. I don't think it's all still there. I think part of it has been torn down since. But anyway, the American Austins used the British Austin 7 chassis. And that's, again, British, it's English. It came about as a very, gas-wise, it's very economical. And one of the why did the English have a little gas-efficient car? Well, over in England, gasoline was very, very expensive. We complain about the price here today, and we've always said, back in the old days, gasoline was much cheaper, but in England it was still expensive in the 20s. And also in England in the 20s, vehicles were taxed based on their horsepower. I just found that out. So it really was in the English best interest to get a car that didn't need a lot of gas and didn't have a lot of horsepower. So these cars, based on that chassis, they got 40 miles per gallon. But actually nobody really cared about that in the 1930s here. That just wasn't a big deal. And they sold for $445, which is actually $5 more expensive than the Ford Model A. So much smaller car. You're thinking probably, well, that's not a good deal to pay more money for less car, but obviously, the gas efficiency thing just wasn't a big selling point. There were some famous drivers of Bantams, Al Jolson, Buster Keaton, Ernest Hemingway. They all had little Bantam, or American Austins, I should say, but it still didn't really help them. The company pretty much went belly up in 1935, so only about 6 years later. But I said this was a 1940. Well, most car companies, that would be the end of the story. In 1937, the American Austin Company returned, but this time they called themselves the American Bantam Car Company. The engine's pretty similar, but it's different enough that they didn't have to pay any royalties to the British company. And I have a little advertisement here. I think this is from 39, so a year earlier. But you know, they're still promoting this car as America's only economy car, and it's smart and thrifty. That still really isn't helping them, you know, money-wise. They're still having financial problems. And by 1941, they're pretty much done. Now, that year, all civilian production of vehicles halted, so that everyone was making military stuff for World War II. And it didn't really matter. American Bantam wasn't financially going to make it through the war. But one of Bantam's most significant achievements happened during its very short-lived World War II production effort. And that was when they built and designed the first successful Jeep for the U.S. Army. Unfortunately, even though they did that, they really didn't have the capital or the production space to make as many Jeeps as were needed for the war effort. So the production was basically licensed to Ford and, now I'm going to pronounce this wrong, is it Willys?
Yes.
Or I've heard it the other way too, and I think
It's Willys.
I always thought it was Willys.
Yeah.
So Willys and Ford utilized the Bantam design, but Bantam was just never financially around in order to do it. And
I also heard not just financially, but they didn't have the facilities to
Right.
build the tremendous amount that the Army needed.
yeah, I mean, we all know about Ford. No one could really compete with
Right.
Ford and how much equipment, real estate he had in order to make all this stuff. But their design lives on, and it's very famous, the Jeep design. And, you know, that's more or less the story of American Bantam. Now, today, I think that factory, part of it still stands, if I'm correct. We were talking about this a little bit. And they make, it's now called AK Steel.
Right.
At first we were saying Armco. We looked it up. They're now AK Steel. They basically make the steel barriers along the side of the road, the retaining, you know, those safety features. They make those. And Quonset huts.
Quonset huts,
Yes.
that's right, yes.
Those big
So,
Quonset huts. So they're still making things today, but not cars anymore. And if I'm correct, the Bantam factory, another car was made there even before then.
Correct.
Correct? And that was the Standard car company. And that was founded in 1902, I believe.
Okay.
Just go with me.
Okay, yeah, 1902. I think it was March 2nd or maybe 3rd.
I have March 4th. No, I'm just kidding. 1902, Andrew Mellon
Okay.
was a financial backer of that. We all know Carnegie Mellon. He was a big
Money.
money man back then. And I guess Diamond Jim Brady was involved with that company a little bit too.
Wasn't he a gangster? No?
A white collar gangster,
Oh,
maybe.
okay, I don't know.
He, an entrepreneur, I guess you could
Okay.
call it. He was really into sales. But yeah, they had a car as well, and I do have an ad too from that company, the Standard 8. And they had some history out there in Butler too. So is that next on our list?
And I think the Standard car, it was the Standard Steel Car Company, I think.
Yes,
the
the
name.
Standard Steel Car Company.
And I think they made railroad cars, like
Yeah,
passenger.
they ended up getting involved with Pullman
Okay.
eventually. I think Pullman bought them. And Pullman made, well, they made cars too at one point, I believe.
Custom body, just a handful
Few.
of them.
And then they were doing railroad cars, and they got involved with Standard as well. And Standard, let me see, each part of a car they felt should be cut and shaped from sheet steel to minimize weight. I don't know how Bantam felt about that.
Oh, okay.
But lots of car history in that one little town.
Yep.
And we'd love to have a Standard too.
Yeah, we did. I
If you've
remember.
got a Standard sitting in your backyard, let us know.
So, yep. So, yeah, I was telling Kendra, it was a few years ago, I was in Butler, and I stayed at a motel, and I went to get pizza or something, and I'm standing in the pizza place waiting for pizza, and there's this big factory behind the pizza place on the other side of railroad tracks. And I asked an older gentleman there, I said, is that the old Bantam plant? He goes, yes, I used to work there. And I got all excited. But, you know, it was just interesting. That goes back maybe 20, 25 years ago where, you know, I guess the people who worked in the Bantam factory, you know, there's not many around anymore. But
Yeah, probably
back
not,
then it was.
unfortunately.
So it was just kind of interesting little sidelight to my trip. So
It's a neat little car because, I mean, it is cute. It's charming, I
charming.
guess you could
Yeah.
say. But, you know, this idea that an economy car, even in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, you'd think people would still maybe like it, but no, they just,
Yep.
it kind of flopped.
I think it was too different than what you
Yeah.
saw back then.
It's very different.
Yeah. Yeah. People can tolerate change, but not too much of it.
Yeah.
And maybe this is too much.
Yeah, yeah.
So. Mm-hmm.
It's wildly different from other stuff coming out in the 1930s, and yeah, it's probably just too different. But it's a neat little car. We're really
Mm-hmm.
happy to have it. They made other models too. Now this is like a little convertible roadster type, but they made delivery bodies, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
a panel truck sort of thing. You know, closed-bodied, hardtop things.
Yeah.
So they made a lot of different
Yeah, if
kinds.
it was closed body, I probably couldn't fit in it because, you know, I'm
Had
looking out
space.
over the windshield here. So,
Yeah, but it's a neat little car, so we're happy to have it. And if you'd like to see it in person, of course, you can come here to the museum, but like I said, too, between January 31st and February 8th, it'll be at the Philadelphia Auto Show right there in the convention center. They have a whole exhibit of vintage cars. And, you know, in the past, we've taken a lot older stuff than this. This is probably the newest thing we'll have taken down there, so this will be neat. So
okay.
that's the Bantam.
Okay, we're back talking about traction problems and snow. We went from horse's hoof, those things, those cleats.
Horseshoe cleats.
Oh, yes, that thing. We went from that to smooth treaded tires to studded tires. We did the whole gamut of things. Still, you can have some traction problems.
Definitely.
And so there were companies out there that thought, we'll take advantage of this. And one of them is called High Stilt Wheels by a company called the Escomobile Company out of Almana, Wisconsin, okay?
Wisconsinites should know.
Yes,
They should
yes,
know.
it's kind of interesting what they have out there. But anyway, it was a wheel that you could get for your car, and they showed them on Fords or Chevys, and it said fit on any standard hub for those cars. But you would need different rear gears and a rear axle because it would need to be slowed down. You don't want to go on the same speed. But anyways, the tires are quite interesting because they had mud tires and sand tires. I don't know which one snow would fit into, but mud tires are 44-inch diameter and 4 inches wide. So what's 44 inches? About this high maybe? And
pretty tall.
for the sand, it would be 50-inch diameter and 6.5 inches wide. 6.5 wider because you would sink easier into the sand. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I think with the mud, at least, the idea was you would sink to the bottom of the mud and then you get traction that way.
Okay.
You know, so you'd be on solid ground. Okay, if you didn't want to just buy this kit, they would build a whole car for you. And I have a feeling they would start with a Ford or Chevy. And according to their advertising, they have new wearing parts, including that you would get a motor exchange, and you'd have new tires, tube, new body, all new fenders. You need new fenders because of this huge tires here. New chassis also, and everything would be ready to drive. I don't have any prices for you or anything. So they had that. Or they could convert the thing to like treads or skis, and it was called the Eskimobile, as the name of the company was. Now, since we mentioned the treads and the skis, there was some companies, that's all they made. And that's what we'll talk about now. There was a company out in West Ossipee, New Hampshire, and it was called the Snowmobile Company. Pretty clever name, huh? 1924, and they said it would put your Ford on snowshoes, and it can be used in mud by substituting wheels for the front runners. But anyway, you would have treads, like tank treads in the back, and you have skis on the front. And the way you would do that, you would use your original rear axle in your car, and you put another axle, we'll say in the middle of the car underneath, and with wheels on it, and you would attach them with the treads they have. And you could also get tires for it. I was wondering, what kind of tires, and they had a thing called, this is interesting, Lambert Trouble-Proof tires. Trouble-Proof, I have to spell it for you. Spelled T-R-U-B-L-E-P-R-U-F. So what is that phonetically?
Trouble-proof.
So there's probably viewers wonder, well, what's wrong with that? So they were solid tires, so they would work there. And they also would be, if it was a Ford, it would be furnished with a Ruxtail axle, and Ruxtail axle would be like a 2-speed rear axle. So it would give you now 4 forward speeds and 2 rear speeds. And it could also slow things up, which you would probably want to do. And there's some testimonials, and I have to read these to you, and it's very interesting, some of them. The Berlin, Wisconsin Evening Journal of January 1924, and reporting the fact that roads had been impassable to everything except bobsleds, states, now along comes the snowmobile, a contrivance with runners in front and caterpillar traction on the rear wheels, which carries the machine along at a merry clip, so that the matter of a pile of snow or deep ruts cuts no figure. And Mr. Driver proceeds along his way rejoicing, and what's more, gets there. Thinking, you don't see advertising like that.
No.
No.
Really
And then
don't.
it talks about another one. This is out of Boston, Massachusetts Post of January 1924. States under a Haverhill dateline, conquering seemingly unsurmountable obstacles in a valiant attempt to save the life of a man who wanted to die. Dr. Elbert A. Landman of Plaistow, New Hampshire, bundled Wallace Courier of that town into his snowmobile this morning and drove for 3.5 hours over 9 miles of almost impassable snow-drifted roads through raging blizzard to Gale Hospital here. And this stuff's great. You can't invent this stuff.
No.
And then there's another one here, Daily Wisconsin News, of January 5th, 1924 states that during the recent snowstorm, the Neenah residents on all routes of the local post office failed to get their mail on time with one exception. Theodore Gustavus, carrier on Route 8, made his entire route, however, through the roads were blocked, although the roads were blocked in places by drifts 10 feet high, his success was due to the use of what is known as a snowmobile. So there you go. Those things could cost you $395, and you would be all ready, and that would be a kit. There's another brand here, and you'll see pictures of this as I'm reading here. It was called the Snowflyer, the Snowflyer Corporation of New Holstein, Wisconsin. And somewhere along the line, they changed it to Snowbird, which is owned by the Arps Corporation in New Holstein, Wisconsin. Same company, though. And they kind of had the same thing. Of course, they wanted to do one better, so they had it where you could change it from 56 tread width, which is standard gauge, wall cars back there, and you could do a narrow gauge 44-inch, and you could really change it easy, and that was an advertising point. They had an axle you could put on there, and it would give you a it could put the wheels on front too, and they were easy to take the wheels and tires off the front and go right back to the skis. And that was another thing. Prices for them was $165 if you wanted a Ford, $175 if you wanted a Chevy attachment there. So they were about half the price of the first one I mentioned. Now, something interesting also about the Snow Flyer and Snowbird is you could have special bodies made. They would sell them to you. You could have a male body, which just sort of looked like a kind of a box, like a little delivery truck here. And you also could have an oil tanker for those people who had to deliver oil. And it'd be a metal oil tank on the back, and pictures of that too. The prices for them, they didn't give a price. They were available at order, I guess. So there they are. And now a little thing I found about it, but two 1932 Fords. You know, you think of 32 Fords, the Deuce Coupe and all that stuff. Okay, picture them with this stuff here. It says two 1932 Fords equipped with ARPS Super Snowbird equipment and custom wood bodies successfully completed the second Antarctic expedition of Admiral Byrd during 1931 through 1933. So there they are.
Wow.
So that's it with the beginnings of snowmobiles.
We are entering a new era of technology here on Motormouth. I like it.
Yes.
This is a really bizarre little video that we're about to watch. So, Dan, can you tell us anything about this weird contraption we're going to see?
This is called a snow motor. It was made by a company called Armstead. And you're going to see at the beginning of it, they're going to be using a Fordson tractor. And then later on, you're going to be seeing a Chevy touring car on it. And I really don't have to say too much because you're going to see it all. And everybody who has seen this just really gets a kick out of it. And it's really neat. And now, this is the first time I've seen it in a little while. And it's pretty neat. And you're looking there at the driver. And you can see the snow is deep. And you can see how deep it is. I mean,
it's amazing.
Is that 5 feet maybe?
Probably.
So, and it's, I don't know, it's awesome. I mean, you see this thing zipping
And
along.
motors, it really goes. It's like 2 big screws.
Mm-hmm. So this is a Fordson tractor. I understand this is from 1926. And they just keep going and just, I see. We've seen it, we saw it at work. You didn't hear that, people. Anyway, we saw it at work, and we all got a kick out of it. It was like, wow, this is really cool. And look at that, you can do donuts in it. I mean, does it get any better than that?
I wonder, I mean, how much gas does this thing eat? There's so many questions I have.
I don't know, but it's pretty rugged. You can see it's like chain driven. If you can see the back of it again, thank you for backing up, mister. And
Listen.
it's coming off of it, I guess the power take off on the back, and it drives 2 big sprockets, one for each of the screws, and there it goes. So I want one of them.
We have a couple of, the video is 10 minutes long. Do you want me to go to
Yeah, you could. You could.
We will, this is a really great video. And like I said, it's about 10 minutes long. This is a good part. Horses should not be used in deep blue snow.
I don't think the hoof cleats would help this
No,
horse much.
look at that poor guy. He's obviously thinking. We will post, you know, if, poor thing. If you go on YouTube and look for 1926 Armstead, ARMSTEAD, snow motor, you'll find this. And you can watch the whole thing. Poor horse.
Yeah.
I don't think the Humane Society would be
No.
too thrilled
no.
with this.
They'll probably call us up tomorrow.
They were going to get him.
I'll call you. So now here it is. This is the same route the horse just took, and they're showing off this snow motor vehicle, and he's no problem. And it's just great.
we'll also, if you are on Facebook, if you like the museum page, we'll post this on the museum's Facebook too, if you want to see the whole thing. Now this.
Yeah, now they're throwing logs on this, and it shows the same vehicle pulling a lot of stuff with it. And
yeah, so now they're kind of saying, hey, use this for your work.
yeah.
You know, not purely a recreational vehicle.
So there it is. You're looking it up, and there it goes. Again, no problem. Now that is not deep snow there, but it shows it still works. Okay, and then we have another excerpt from it we can
Yep.
show. Deep snowdrift. Yeah, this is phenomenal.
His hat has stayed on the whole time, hasn't it?
Really. And that's interesting. His tie is probably straight too.
Yeah,
You know, they dressed differently back then. So, you know, I can imagine that fence that you see there is probably, you know, normal height for a fence, which is,
Yeah.
I don't know, 3-4 feet. And he's right. So,
We're not quite sure where this was filmed, do we?
Wisconsin, it gotta be.
It has
No,
to
I
be.
don't know.
Who else has snow like this?
Maybe Mississippi, New Hampshire.
Have you seen any of these in person, Dan?
I think I have. Okay, here's the cool one, because here's a car. You can use this, you know.
He's got that stick out,
Yeah, that
measuring
stick.
stick again.
So that must be an option. So I've not seen one live. I believe there's one in
Everyone runs in.
There's one in a museum, I believe Fountainhead Museum up in
Alaska. Well,
of-
there you go.
Obviously. And I think I saw pictures of another one somewhere. So, yeah, there's a couple of them out there. And if you go on YouTube and watch this, there's also videos of other newer vehicles that use this, but none of them are as cool as this.
No.
I mean, that's a Chevy there. It's a Chevy touring car, and zipping around. So,
Just absurd looking.
so it's great. And you know, you talk about going out for a joyride in the snow. And that's neat. And snowed-in communities are no longer impossible. So there he is.
Yeah, I've never seen one of these in person, and it seems
I think we ought to find one for the museum.
we should. It's
Pennsylvania made.
home. It seems to work, and I wonder what's wrong with it that you don't see this all the time.
No. Well, you mentioned the gas. I'm looking at the way it's driven in the back with the chains, and it's just like, you know, small animals could get caught in there and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's not the safest thing all the time.
So now we're back with the tractor again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and this is another thing. This is, he's going across the field, I believe. That's what's coming up here. And just a plain grass field. And kind of slow with the sign. There it is. So,
It doesn't seem to move quite as efficiently on
no.
Well, that's part of the video, and like I said, if you go on YouTube and search for this, you'll find it. You can watch the whole thing, and also we'll post it on it's just absurd on the museum's Facebook page if you are on there, and you can go watch the whole thing. And because we're actually about at the end of our
Yeah,
program
we are.
this month, so
We are.
yeah, I guess we'll just do our little wrap up.
Yeah, you
you
gotta-
know, I neglected to mention actually that last month when we did our test of the windshield water
Oh, repellent.
repellents or whatever, we had made a mixture. We took this recipe
Right.
and we mixed the glycerin and the water and the salt. And you know, you and I talked after that and said, you know, maybe we didn't wait long enough because it was still kind of wet when we came
Right.
in here and
Yep.
sprayed it.
Yep.
So I redid it
Okay.
in between and did it on a Friday, let it sit all weekend.
Okay.
Tested it out again. What do you think happened?
Hopefully it worked better.
It did.
Was it a lot
did.
better or
It definitely beaded this time.
really?
Yep.
Wow.
I wouldn't want to use it in a torrential downpour, but it was good. So
So-
we did go back and retest that.
So viewers, if your windshield wiper breaks, get an onion out, rub it on your windshield,
And a carrot.
and wait over the weekend. You'll be
That'd be
fine.
perfect. So, well, I guess that's our show for
Okay.
this month, and we'll be back in February
Yep.
with something new and different and
Oh yeah, absolutely.
interesting. So, thanks for joining us.
Okay. Thank you.